A hand shot out, grasping at nothing but air. He was falling. No, not falling, waking. Eyes snapped open, met by a dizzying canopy of green leaves. Where was he? Panic seized him, cold and sharp. His heart pounded against his ribs like a trapped bird. The air hung heavy, thick with the smells of earth and rot. He tried to sit up, a groan escaping his lips. Pain lanced through his head, making him gasp. Memories, fleeting and fragmented, flashed behind his eyes. Faceless figures, a struggle, then nothing. He was lying on a bed of damp leaves. Twisting, he saw thick vines, ancient trees reaching for the sky, the jungle. He was in the jungle, but how? Why couldn't he remember? The questions swirled in his mind, as disorienting as the throbbing in his head. He had to get his bearings. Pushing himself to his feet, he swayed, gripping a nearby tree trunk for support. The world swam before his eyes, the green of the jungle blurring. He was alone, lost, and something in the air, something primal, whispered of danger. Each step was an effort, his legs shaky and uncertain. The jungle floor was a treacherous maze of gnarled roots and decaying vegetation. He stumbled, often catching himself on branches, their roughness scratching at his skin. The air was thick and still, a living, breathing entity. The sunlight, filtering through the dense canopy, was weak and pale. It did little to penetrate the gloom that seemed to cling to everything. He scanned his surroundings, searching for anything familiar, any landmark that could tell him where he was. But there was nothing. Only the endless, oppressive green. A flash of blue caught his eye. He pushed aside a curtain of ferns, revealing a small, delicate butterfly. It perched on a leaf, its wings a vibrant contrast to the surrounding darkness. He stared at it, a flicker of something akin to hope stirring within him. But the moment was shattered by the screech of a bird, harsh and piercing. It tore through the silence, sending a shiver down his spine. He was reminded of where he was. This place, this beautiful, deadly jungle, held nothing but uncertainty. He had to keep moving. His throat was parched, as dry and scratchy as the leaves that littered the forest floor. The need for water was a burning ache, a gnawing hunger that surpassed even the emptiness in his stomach. He licked his lips, tasting only the sweat and grime that clung to him. He came across a stagnant pool, its surface covered in a layer of green slime. Desperation gnawed at him. He knew he shouldn't, but he dipped his fingers into the cool water, bringing it to his lips. The taste was foul, but he drank greedily, the liquid a balm to his parched throat. Hunger was a close second to thirst. He saw strange fruits hanging from vines, brightly colored and tempting, but instinct warned him. He knew nothing of this jungle, its dangers hidden beneath a deceptive beauty. He couldn't afford to be careless. As he pushed through the undergrowth, he noticed a small, scurrying creature. It was a rodent of some sort, plump and slow-moving. He lunged, surprised by the burst of energy that surged through him. He missed. Disappointment, sharp and keen, pierced him. He needed to learn, and learn fast. The jungle was a sensory overload, a symphony of buzzing insects, screeching birds, and the rustling of unseen creatures. It was as if the entire forest was alive, watching him, judging his every move. He felt a constant prickle on the back of his neck, a feeling of being observed. He stumbled over something hard and metallic, half hidden in the undergrowth. Bending down, he brushed away the leaves, revealing a dented canteen. It was army green, the paint scratched and faded, but still surprisingly intact. Hope, like a fragile butterfly, fluttered in his chest. He turned the canteen over in his hands, tracing the faded lettering with his fingers. There was a name etched into the metal, barely visible beneath the grime. Sam. The name meant nothing to him, yet it sparked a flicker of recognition, a distant echo in the recesses of his mind. Clutching the canteen, he felt a surge of determination. If he could find this Sam, maybe he could find answers. Answers about the jungle, about the fragmented memories that haunted him, about who he was. For the first time since he woke up, he felt a glimmer of hope, a reason to keep going. The jungle was never silent. It hummed with 1,000 different sounds, a cacophony of life and death playing out around him. But as the sun began its descent, casting long shadows through the trees, he started to notice something different. A new sound, whispers. At first he dismissed it as the wind rustling the leaves, playing tricks on his frayed nerves. But the whispers persisted, soft and low, seeming to follow him as he moved. He He stopped, holding his breath, straining to hear. The whispers ceased. He started walking again, his pace quicker now, a sense of unease settling over him. The whispers resumed, a chorus of hushed voices just beyond the range of his hearing. He couldn't make out any words, but the tone was unmistakable. Someone or something was talking about him. He quickened his pace, breaking into a run, his heart pounding in his chest. The whispers grew louder, seeming to surround him, taunting him. He didn't know who or what was out there, but he knew one thing: he was not alone in this jungle. He stumbled upon it as darkness began to seep into the jungle, turning the green to shades of grey and black. It was a cave, its entrance hidden behind a curtain of vines. He hesitated, fear warring with curiosity. He could hear the whispers, closer now, just outside the cave. He ducked inside, the darkness enveloping him like a shroud. The air was cool and damp, heavy with the smell of earth and something else, something musky and unfamiliar. He took a tentative step forward, his foot dislodging a loose stone. It clattered against the cave floor, the sound echoing unnaturally loud in the silence. His eyes slowly adjusted to the gloom, making out the rough walls of the cave. There were strange symbols etched into the rock, crudely drawn but undeniably deliberate. He ran his fingers over the markings, feeling a cold shiver crawl up his spine. They looked ancient, primal. He pushed deeper into the cave, his heart pounding in his chest. The air grew colder, the smell of musk stronger. He rounded a bend, and what he saw made him gasp. In the center of the cave, a fire flickered, casting dancing shadows on the walls. And huddled around the fire, their backs to him, were figures. They weren't whispers anymore. He froze, every instinct screaming at him to run, but something held him rooted to the spot. The figures were clad in rough-spun clothing, their faces hidden in the shadows. They spoke in hushed tones, their words a language he didn't understand, yet somehow felt familiar. One of the figures shifted, and firelight glinted off something metallic, a dog tag. It was identical to the one he'd found earlier, dented and scratched, but clearly bearing the same name: Sam. Memories, vivid and fragmented, flashed before his eyes. A training exercise, an explosion, the jungle closing in. He stumbled back, knocking over a loose rock. The figures reacted instantly, leaping to their feet, their hands reaching for weapons he couldn't see. He raised his hands in a gesture of surrender, his voice a croak in the silence. "Don't shoot. I'm not here to hurt you." The figures hesitated, their eyes narrowed, assessing him. He took a step forward, the firelight illuminating his face. One of the figures, a woman with eyes hardened by years of survival, gasped. "It can't be," she breathed, her voice filled with disbelief. "It's you." He stared at them, his mind a whirlwind of confusion and dawning understanding. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "How do you know my name?" But even as he spoke, he realized he already knew the answer. The fragmented memories were slotting into place, forming a picture he wasn't sure he wanted to see. The woman stepped forward, her face etched with a mixture of awe and fear. "You've been gone a long time," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "We thought you were dead." She reached out a hesitant hand, touching his cheek as if to reassure herself he was real. He flinched at her touch, a jolt of electricity shooting through him. He didn't understand. He didn't remember, but as he looked into their eyes, he saw a reflection of himself. The same weariness, the same haunted look. They were survivors, just like him. He was about to speak when a twig snapped outside the cave entrance. The figures tensed, their eyes darting to the shadows. The woman grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong. "They've found us," she hissed, her voice urgent. "We need to go, now." Panic surged through him, cold and sharp. He didn't know who they were, but the fear in the woman's eyes told him everything he needed to know. They were in danger. He allowed himself to be pulled deeper into the cave, following the others through a narrow passage that twisted and turned, the air thick with the smell of damp earth. They emerged into a small, hidden grotto, a subterranean stream trickling down one wall. The woman quickly explained that they were being hunted, that their very existence was a threat to someone powerful. He didn't understand, but he knew he had to trust them. They were all he had. As they huddled together, the woman pointed to a rough inscription on the cave wall. The symbols were similar to the ones he'd seen earlier, but these were more elaborate, forming a chilling message. "Beware the one who sees all," she translated, her voice grave. He is watching. He is always watching. Before he could ask who he was, a cold draught of air swept through the grotto. A low growl echoed from the passage behind them, sending shivers down their spines. The growl grew louder, closer, resolving into words that dripped with menace. "I told you it was only a matter of time."